In this episode of the podcast, I want to talk to you about the components of health. So, not just focusing necessarily on weight loss, but also thinking about some of the other things that actually make up a healthy lifestyle, a healthy person, a healthy human, a healthy you, a healthy me. Somewhere, there could be a song in there somewhere. Anyway, I'm not going to sing to you. We're going to talk podcasting. Anyway, health is about much more than nutrition. It's way more than about fat loss. It's way more than about a calorie deficit. Yes, you will hear me talk about a calorie deficit quite consistently for the method, the principle for you to lose weight, because that's absolute fact. If that's what you want, if that's what you want to achieve, is weight loss, is fat loss, then you need to be in a calorie deficit. But that doesn't mean health. There is a lot more to your health than just managing your body fat or reducing your body fat or being in a calorie deficit. There is much more for you to think about in order to be a healthy human, because at the end of the day, that's what we want. Weight loss is never the goal. Weight loss is not the end game that you want to achieve. At the end of the day, your actual weight means fuck all. No one cares, not even you. You might care right now, or you might think you care what you weigh. But actually, what you're trying to achieve is a state of happiness, of well-being, of enjoying life, of enjoying social events, of being in a positive state of mental health. And that has got nothing to do with your scale weight number. Let's say, for example, you've got a desire to be 70 kilos on the scale. If you reach 70 kilos, great. Are you instantly happier if you've done nothing else? No. Are you a little bit more confident in yourself? Maybe, but you may not have healed your relationship with food. You may not be socially kind of active. You might have killed your social life by achieving that 70 kilos. And then once you've achieved it, if you get to 72 kilos, does that mean you're now slightly more inferior? No, it doesn't. So the actual weight itself is not necessarily the goal. You need to think about it as a tool. Measuring your weight is a tool for achieving a specific goal, which might not be just weight loss. So there are other components of health that I want to talk about, that I want you to start thinking about. The earlier you can start thinking about these things and improving all aspects of health, then actually you will start to have a more healthy relationship with life. You will enjoy life a little bit more. You'll be more satisfied, and therefore you won't have this real compelling urge to have everything revolve around what you eat and what you weigh, because that's really what you want to get rid of. You don't want to get rid of that obsession to, I weigh this and therefore that makes me happy. I weigh this, therefore that makes me sad. You want to get away from that sort of thing. Now, the first component of health, we'll get it out the way quickly. That one is physical. So there is a physical component to health. Now, that might be a body fat reduction. That might be building some muscle or getting the physique that you want. That might be a component of health. So having more muscle, doing resistance training is probably good for metabolic health. It's good for strength. It's good for strength in when you get older and you start to maybe lose some muscle. If you've got more muscle mass, then you can be potentially healthier, avoid injury and all those sort of breaks, bumps and falls later in life. And being a bit stronger is kind of cool. But anyway, there's the second component, because we'll move past that one because you already know that one. The second one is mental health. So from the point of view from myself, obviously I'm not going to go into many different aspects of mental health because I'm not qualified to do so. But from a nutritional standpoint, I would be looking at it to remove any obsessive tendencies. So if you are obsessed with calorie counting, or you're obsessed with making sure everything is clean, quote unquote, you're scrubbing your broccoli with bleach before you eat it. Don't do that, kids. Please don't do that. But you get what I mean, is that you've got this obsession with having to be healthy. You've got this obsession that is really actually affecting the way you live your life, your enjoyment of life, and therefore that is then starting to, in my mind, start to affect your mental health. Or it could be the state that you have this obsessive behavior with weighing yourself, or with having your life dictated by what you weigh, and all these different sorts of things. So trying to reduce that behavior, that obsessive behavior, is important for mental health. And also not just being weight loss focused. Now, if you're weight loss focused, that's very much an output goal. And whilst sometimes an output goal can be very useful, not focusing on process goals is going to be really detrimental to your long-term ability to sustain whatever output you get. Because if you focus a lot on the process and you start to enjoy that process, well, guess what? You've built up healthy habits, you've built up processes that you'll do day to day that will make it easy for you to maintain whatever results you get to. So whatever body fat you land on, if you enjoy the process, you enjoy being active, going to the gym, your muscle mass will be what it will be. You're just enjoying that process. So don't necessarily be that kind of weight focused, weight centric viewpoint. The third one is social. So friends, family. Again, I'm not a psychiatrist. I'm not going to tell you exactly what you do to improve your family life, your social life, and all that sort of shit. God knows mine's crap. So I'm not one to give you advice. Anyway, enough of my Tinder style stories I'm not going to delve into them on these podcasts. Maybe another time. Maybe ask me a question in the DMs and maybe I'll turn that into a question. Anyway, moving on. So you'll be talking from my point of view of, again, telling people that they can achieve their goals without excluding their social life, without thinking that basically having a life is bad, that you can incorporate achieving your goals and doing all these sorts of things whilst enjoying life. That's important. So don't forget that your social life, your relationship with your friends, your family, and all that sort of good stuff is part of health. It's a healthy lifestyle that you're having, and understanding that you can do that sort of thing and still live a healthy lifestyle is super, super important. And then I would also say, in that respect as well, understanding that you can do all these things. One practical way to try and do that is not give yourself a time-specific goal unless you absolutely have to. Most people don't need to lose weight, if that's their goal, by a specific time. You don't have to build muscle by a specific date. These things aren't really time-driven. Unless you are stepping on stage for a physique competition and you have to lose a certain amount of body fat in order to be competition ready, you're not really driven by a time scale to be that lean by that date. So you reduce the pressure. You can then reduce the amount of onus you put on yourself. I have to be perfect each and every week because I need to achieve this amount of weight loss by this time. Because that then comes with pressure. You're then saying, well, okay, if I don't achieve that, then what happens? All of this was for nothing. So what was the point? I didn't achieve that weight loss goal, so all this is shit. Whereas if you think, well, my process is I'm just going to focus on building some healthier habits. I'm going to have a better relationship with food. I'm going to maybe reduce refined sugars. I'm maybe going to reduce processed foods and things like that, and start to build healthy habits that in turn have the secondary benefit of helping you to lose weight. But it's not necessarily saying you have to do it by a specific date and time. That's what can cause some sort of pressure. And then you start to eliminate going out. You start to maybe affect your relationship with your partner because they don't necessarily following a weight loss diet, and you're kind of impacting your enjoyment with them. So it's important that you are considering all of these things. All of these things make up health. It's not simply about how lean can I get my abs. That's not health. The fourth one is emotional health. And that is about having a healthy relationship with food. So as we've talked about before on previous episodes, there is no good foods, no bad foods. Making sure that you don't judge yourself when you want to have some particular food. Maybe in the past you've thought that this particular food was bad and you thought it was overindulgent and you can't have it when you're trying to lose weight and all those sorts of things. It's bad and you feel guilty. So trying to remove those feelings and getting rid of that is going to build you a healthy relationship with food, and having that unconditional permission to eat whatever you want and still achieve your goals, whether that's weight maintenance or anything like that, is super important. And also it might incorporate this kind of emotional thing, maybe a way of eating and a way of approaching nutrition that really kind of, let's quote unquote it, speaks to you. That might be like veganism or something like that, because from a moral point of view, it kind of speaks to you. That's kind of what you want. That's the way you want to live your life. And that's cool. Finding that is quite liberating, and it can be quite motivating, and yeah, it can be a good thing for your overall health. Not necessarily veganism is not necessarily healthier than every other diet, But if it speaks to you on an emotional level, that makes you more happy on that kind of front. The fifth one then is economic. Economic is obviously finances. So you want to achieve that healthy diet within the confines of your specific budget, because no one's got unlimited budget to say they can buy every single supplement that ever was produced that could produce some benefit, or that you've got an unlimited budget when it comes to food and things like that. So you have to find that healthy way of eating, that healthy approach to your nutrition that suits your budget. And once you can do that, you don't have those stresses and strains around eating well and nutrition when it comes to your finances. And a lot of people find it difficult to live a healthy lifestyle on a budget, but it is absolutely possible. In fact, I've done a podcast on it. You can scroll through, and dieting, I think, or nutrition on a budget is one of the podcasts you can check out. And the sixth and final one is intellectual health, like being a freaking brain box. Now, you don't have to be ready for Mastermind or fucking Jeopardy or whatever freaking show you like, but this is about being empowered to make your own decisions when it comes to nutrition. Again, I'm just talking about nutrition here. These things can go off down different rabbit holes and rabbit warrens and talking about lots of things outside nutrition, but I'm kind of sticking within my wheelhouse, as the Americans would say. Now, being empowered to make your own decisions is basically, say, for example, like a coach like me. That's one of the things that I really focus on with the free content that I produce like this, and also what I teach my coaching clients is I want to empower them and you with the information you need in order to live a healthier life, a happier life, so that you don't feel like you have to constantly be second guessing yourself or questioning some dude on the internet because you're not quite sure. You want to be empowered to know what the basic right decisions are. Now, you've not necessarily got an interest in being a nutritionist or anything like that, but you want to know the basics of good nutrition and good health. So that's what intellectual health means to me in terms of a nutrition context. Now, the other thing would be like not having BS information. Now, I think that you all have a right to not receiving bullshit information. Now, that is very difficult to filter, very, very difficult for you to understand when you Google something. Who's giving you good information? Who's giving you bad information? When you find an account on Instagram or wherever, are they talking shit or are they talking good sense? Now, obviously, the easiest way to do it is start with somebody you trust and then look at who they recommend, they potentially follow, and so on and so forth, to get the point that you are confident that you're building up this bank of nutrition professionals, let's say, that are giving solid information and you're not getting that BS, and you are in turn improving your intellectual health, and you're getting to a point where you understand more about nutrition. So they're like the 6 concepts, those 6 facets, components, whatever you want to call it, of health that I think that you should be considering. Now, they are what are taught in MNU, Mac Nutrition Uni, and I think they're very, very valid. So please actually pay attention. Don't just then have this go in one ear and out the other and think, okay, right, but I'm just going to get straight back on that calorie deficit and lose some weight because that's what I'm fucking interested in. I want abs, which you can do, but don't ignore the other stuff as well. And there's also like lessons you can learn from countries or areas of the world we call blue zones. Now, like blue zones are have the largest concentrations of people living over 100. So they're kind of considered the healthiest areas on planet Earth. Now, you can take some of like learning from them to say, okay, if all of this stuff incorporates health, what are some of the healthiest people on planet Earth actually doing? Now, there are some commonalities. So they're always physically active. They have low stress levels. They have some sun exposure. They have this kind of sense of community, a close-knit community. They rarely smoke, if at all. And they have this kind of also religion, or not necessarily has to be like gaudy, because I'm not the least gaudy person you'll ever meet, but some sense of purpose in life that they're kind of working towards. And they also kind of have these states of low or no pollution, and they maybe like grow their own food, cook their own food, all of these different sorts of things. So people who are living in these countries or these areas of the world where there's very, very low levels of disease rates their high life expectancy, and they're living these healthier life. These are the common things that are prevalent. So if you can be more physically active, if you can reduce your stress levels, get some sun exposure, then community, again, that's maybe around the family and the social health side of things. Smoking, get rid of that. Sense of purpose in life, that's quite cool as well. Low or no pollution, you may not have any control of that. Freaking if you may not have any control over pollution levels, but hey ho, you can always go on holiday, I suppose, extended holiday. Now, when it comes to like health, let's talk about one more component part of it, and that's your genetics. So genetics play a huge part in health. You can't get away from it. Now, can you do much about it? In some cases, no, not really. But what I would say is your genetics might define your start point, but they don't necessarily define where you'll end up, because there you can kind of basically, if it's a case of losing weight, okay, you might be at a point where your genetics start to work against you a little bit, but there is also this element of nature versus nurture. So there's a study by Ocken and Gilman in 2003 that looked at correlation between higher BMI and a higher birth weight. So the higher birth weight led to higher BMI in adult years. There's also a link between gestational diabetes in pregnancy and the fact you're more likely to develop type 2 diabetes or obesity in later life. But then you kind of got to say, well, is that nature or is that nurture? Is it the fact that you were born at a higher birth weight led to that? Or was it the fact that you're in a family and an environment that nurtures a higher level of body fat? These are questions that don't necessarily have the answer to, but it's kind of saying, well, okay, you may be put in this position, but it doesn't necessarily define you. It doesn't stop you losing weight. It doesn't necessarily impact you from losing weight, losing body fat, getting to a healthier position in terms of all the different markers. So the things that you can do is obviously exercise. You can limit your refined starches, limit your added sugar, you can limit processed foods, and you can kind of also limit certain processed fats as well. If you're doing those sorts of things and maybe having a diet that's predominantly plant-based with or without animal products, then you're kind of doing all the right things to push yourself in the right direction. So for me, that's all of the different component parts that make health. It's not just about weight loss. It's not just about fat loss. It's about all these various different things as well. So make sure that when you are progressing down this line of trying to improve your health, trying to improve all these different markers, that you're not just focusing in on weight. Yes, we are in a culture and a society where weight loss is considered to be the be all and end all of everything, but actually it's not. There's lots more to it than that. And just make sure you don't fall into that trap of it has to be about weight loss. That's the only judgment, the only marker of my progress. There's lots of other different things that you need to consider. So I hope you enjoyed this episode of the podcast. If you did, as always, I'd love to hear from you on Instagram. It's at iron_paradise_fitness. And if you did enjoy the episode, I always love seeing your little screenshots on Instagram stories and places like that. That's really cool for me to see, especially when you're from some far-flung part of the country or from the world maybe. So that's always kind of cool. So if you want to do that, tag a picture, tag me in that picture, and I'll gladly kind of come along, say thanks, give it a little bit of a double tap, and then, yeah, that'll all be cool. So thanks very much for listening. Thanks very much for watching if you're on YouTube. All I'll say now is keep living the lean life, and I'll see you for the next episode of the show.